Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, or team up against a guest and battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 1. Hello, podsters, or podroonies if you prefer. This week we are doing our Mad Scientist versus Mad Scientist episode. But actually, obviously, that was a joke and no one laughed.
Yes. Yeah, that was fucking hilarious.
I mean, to be honest, I was waiting for you to explain more and then be more of a punchline. But never mind.
I thought that was an obvious joke, but
nah, I thought you were just being cool.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it was too sophisticated for us.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Guardians of the Galaxy 3, I should say Volume 3 is out on the cinemas, so we'll be talking Threequels this episode, and it's very exciting. We have a guest from, and you've already heard him already, the Take 97 podcast. David, how are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you, Martin. How are you? And Boaz, how are you both doing? You're very good?
Yeah, man, we're great.
Honestly,
I'm very well.
That's so good. I'm just very pleased to be here. Thank you so much for having me on and to discuss two very different films, but also very, contrasting films at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
Night and day, really.
And of course, I'm joined by our very own mad scientist himself, Boaz Dix. How are you, sir?
Great Scott. I'm wonderful.
Heavy.
Yes, that's heavy, man. Serious shit.
David, tell us about your
Yes.
podcast and where can we find you?
So where you can find me. So I am David Ingram and I am the host of Take 97, a film podcast. I've been going for, it's got 3 years now, since 2020. Wow. So
well done.
One of the many of us that emerged from the lockdown haze and all the craziness of COVID. But yeah, Take 97 has been going since 2020. So 3 years strong this year. And we are available on all your regular podcasting sites. So you can find us on, Spotify podcasters. I'm actually, I originally started out as an Anchor original podcast and now they've changed into Spotify podcasters. So that's where you can find me. I'm on Apple Podcasts, Google, you name it, I'm on there somewhere. You find me on your preferred app and you can listen at your own leisure. But yeah, and we've also got Instagram and Twitter socials, which I'll get into more later. But yeah, we're coming up to our 100th episode. I can't even, I'm looking at my notes, I'm just like, wow, I'm nearly at 100 episodes. It's mad to think that 3 years takes you to this stage. But yeah, we're currently on episode, I think the latest episode as of the recording of this is episode 84, which is based on the cult classic Return to Oz. So we're very closely and very quickly approaching the 100th episode of Take 97. So I'm very excited for that. But, guys, this is your show. I'm excited to be on here with you guys. And I want you guys to just, show me what this is all about. And we'll just have some fun because based on previous conversations, this is going to be wild.
I hope so.
Yeah. Strap in, man.
Talking about nearly approaching 100 episodes, well, this is actually episode 99. So
we're getting there.
We've got one to go.
Is that just to rub it in with me? Yeah. Because, you didn't want me on episode 100. You thought, put him on. He's like, 99 episodes, but he ain't one.
I like that. That's good.
I like what you did there. But no, you just reminded me. I'm like, oh yeah, we've got 100 next week. Shit. What are we going to do that's special? I don't know. Help.
Not feature me, apparently.
I don't know, man.
Well, if we have a dropout, you can come on again. It's fine.
Yeah.
Postpone. Joys.
We could do a shared 100th. You could postpone yours and then we postpone ours and we could have a shared 100 one.
That's an idea.
Not to put a downer on it, but 100 episodes kind of don't do very well, apparently. So.
No. I mean, it does well because we feel well, because, we feel like we've achieved something because we've lasted so long. So, that's our justification.
Yes, please listen.
You could have given up at any time, and we didn't. We made it through 100. We should get a letter from the king or something.
So, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is out soon. So, what are we excited for this one? Are we trepidatious? What are our thoughts going into this one, people?
We were talking about this before we got onto this actual episode. Marvel is just souring so much. Like all of their content nowadays, like up to Endgame, it was great. And now, well, maybe with a few fillers here and there, because, you got to have the odd filler in a franchise. Every franchise has one or two if you're Marvel. But, I just think it's just not really...
Ant-Man.
Yeah, one of those. But no, I really just think that the stories aren't there. They're the same plots over and over again with just different visuals. Like, they're getting better visually, I'll say that now.
Yeah.
But,
Well, it's like some of them I think aren't even... They're kind of okay visually as well.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
So I think some of them are like... But I think because they're dividing their team under, so much stuff, shows and films... you do get like some spotty CGI that just comes out of nowhere, like in a good film, and then I think it sticks out a lot more because I think they're really overworking their CGI department.
I mean, She-Hulk is just one sentence I can use. That's just 2 words just to bring that down.
That looks bad, yeah.
Or MODOK.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
MODOK. Yeah, that's pretty horrible.
MODOK, good old MODOK.
Yeah. I just think I think you're right. I think they're doing so many that it's like cookie cutter stuff. It's like it's just being made in a factory.
Cut and paste.
It's like cut and paste. It just feels like it's cut.
I mean, I do think though, having said all that, I am excited for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 because, to be honest, it's the one individual franchise then out of the whole of Marvel that I have been invested in. I know this is only the 3rd film. It's not like, Captain America that's approaching its 4th one, Iron Man that was in 3 solo movies, and then the Avengers, and those ones. I genuinely think the Guardians of the Galaxy, they have such a unique tone to them, and James Gunn, the origin of bringing these characters to the big screen was really inspiring for me as a science fiction lover, because I do love a bit of science fiction, and science fiction humor, when they're done right, they can do really well. I think he did really well with the first one. Second one, I think, it's not my favorite, but it's got some good moments in there. But the third one, I feel like, it's going to bring it all together. And because we're so invested in a lot of these characters, I just think that it's going to be a much better experience than some of the other, like we say, cookie dough, cut and paste jobs that we've had so far. At least I hope anyway. But I'll hold my breath.
I definitely hope because I think you're right. The Guardians and how they're done, they're so quintessentially James Gunn. He does feel like, he's got a specific vision and a way he does things that I really do think, sets him apart. You can tell this is a James Gunn movie. You can tell this is a James Gunn superhero movie. He has that sort of, do you know what I mean? Just stamp.
Yeah.
And, I think he's very outspoken and he'll get what he wants. So I'm pretty sure this will be more his vision than Marvel.
I think for me, I am very, very excited for this one. I would put Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, in my top 3 of all time favorite Marvel films. I do adore that film.
Yeah, it is a good film.
The second one was still very good. But yeah, in James Gunn, I really do trust. I just fear for the characters. I'm like, I don't want anyone to die.
Yeah.
I feel like we're going to have some deaths and I'm going to cry a lot.
Well, James Gunn's a harsh son of a bitch. He always kills someone.
He is.
Bastard.
So horrible. I mean, to be honest, everyone keeps saying Rocket. Everyone keeps saying Rocket's going to be one of... I think he said there's a rumor that it's going to be 2 people that are going to go, 2 characters that are going to go.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And the current rumor is that Rocket's going to be definitely one of them. And then the other one, it's either going to be Peter as the big one, or if it's not Peter, it'll be the likes of
Drax, or
either Nebula or Gamora, one of the 2. Yeah, and Drax, actually, to be fair, Drax is the other one. He's the one that people keep saying, because obviously Dave Bautista's been a bit quiet on the promo front.
I don't want any of them to die.
Yeah, I think Dave has come out before where he says he doesn't really want to do superhero movies anymore. So he said, I think for definite, whether he dies or not, he doesn't want to do this kind of stuff anymore. This isn't his scene.
No. It'd be nice if he just left, wouldn't it? Just don't die, Drax. Just go.
Yeah, he doesn't have to die. Exactly. Yeah.
Just goes on a constant holiday afterwards with Mantis.
I think that would be. And he's constantly invisible throughout eternity. With every single, he will go through his existence being unseen by everybody because he's completely invisible, and he'll be asking those philosophical questions. He should go to a space university where he starts
oh man, I think that would be amazing. Like he becomes a professor.
Why is Thanos? Why is the universe?
Yeah, I think that would be brilliant.
Disney Plus show right there for you.
Yes, not that they should do it, but they could.
No, yeah.
Yeah, I think he should become a professor of logic or something.
Oh, yes, that's brilliant.
My only worry is the fact that I know he wrote this script a long time ago before he became the head person at DC, but he would have been planning a lot of that DC stuff while he was editing this film. So I don't know. I don't know whether that's going to have an effect on the quality. I mean, he's going to be a bit distracted with what's going on with DC because that's a lot of work as well. So. So I don't know. Well, in James Gunn, I trust. So I feel like this film is going to bring Marvel back on track, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Before it goes off again.
Right, let's talk threequels then. David, should we talk about your one first? What is your pick for threequels?
Absolutely. So my pick for this threequels edition of your podcast, is a film that I do hold very close to my heart. It's a classic in its own right. It's not everyone's go-to film, but being the third movie in what I class as a flawless trilogy to a degree.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with you.
Yeah, with the odd few little things here and there, I class this trilogy of films as just purity, really, pure cinema blockbuster magic from the 80s. And that is I say 80s. This film's actually was released in 1990, but it was shot back to back in the 1980s with its second and its predecessor. And that is Back to the Future Part 3. I just absolutely adore the original one. The characters, you got Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd as our main heroes. It's one of those films that's quintessentially it sums up blockbuster cinema to a T. It's fun, it's enjoyable, it's actually funny, and it's just got, even though we may moan about the same story being recycled over and over again in Marvel, technically Back to the Future, both 1, 2, and 3, all have the same story. They just have slightly different elements in all of them, especially the third one. The third one is basically the first one, but in Western times.
And more focusing on Doc. Doc's got this cursed relationship that he's got to prevent,
Yes, exactly. And and the second one's basically the first one, but with echoes. Echoes of the first.
So were there any other films in contention for your choice, David?
There's quite a few, to be honest. And it's interesting that we've got in touch with each other and you've got me on this episode, to be honest, because me as a person, I actually enjoy the third movie in a franchise the most. I don't know what it is. It's not always the case, but I tend to say my general rule of thumb, or at least for most things, is that I enjoy the third movie the most 9 times out of 10. In this case, I think the first one will always trump the third Back to the Future, this being a close second because it is so unique and it looks so different from the original, and it's got that different setting, and like Boaz just said, you've literally just got this a little bit more of a focus on the other character who's mainly the foil and the scientific help really in the first two, but not really the cause of much of the anguish and the plot disturbance, shall we say. But no, other films, I generally do like probably controversial to say, but in terms of Star Wars, I loved Return of the Jedi when I was growing up. As much as I respect Empire Strikes Back, it's definitely my top one nowadays. Growing up, I would say Return of the Jedi, Ewoks and all, was my favorite Star Wars film. And when it comes to the prequels, again, I enjoyed Revenge of the Sith as a young I just enjoyed it so much.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That was by far the best film out of the prequels.
It was. I mean, it wasn't bloated like the second one, and it wasn't as strange and jar-jarring as the first one, if you see what I did there.
Yeah, that's a great one. Dum-dum. You're here all week.
Gee. No, but yeah, so I'd say, Return of the Jedi, The Last Crusade as well, from the Indiana Jones franchise.
That's a damn good one.
Yeah.
Again, that's, to be honest, the Indiana Jones ones, I love all of them in their own respect. But, that one, I think definitely, you've got Harrison Ford playing opposite Sean Connery. It's just such a cool dynamic that, I was really tempted to bring that one for this one because it was like one of the two films that I think maybe. But, Back to the Future, I've recently actually been to see the stage musical that they've done of it in London. And it was on my mind quite, recently. And I was just thinking, do you know what? I think I ought to revisit the other two films, and particularly the third one because of this episode. But I actually forgot how much I enjoyed the third one of Back to the Future in the trilogy because, everyone talks about the first one. And obviously because the musical, for people who are into that nowadays, who are going to see that in London or Broadway, they're literally so, down with the original story that people probably are now going to forget about the second and the third one. But they should really check the third one out because it genuinely has some great, solid moments in it.
Oh yeah, I would agree. I'm glad you didn't pick Last Crusade because we have a episode scheduled for Indiana Jones films. So I was like, oh shit, please don't pick that one.
Oh yeah, but I would love to watch The Last Crusade again. So I'm jazzed for that. I actually think that might be my favorite Indiana Jones movie, which is so that's going to be great.
This is probably the film, arguably, that I've seen the most ever because it's always on ITV2 all the fucking time.
Yes. I'm so glad.
I've seen it so many times.
Literally, I feel like it's really weird. It's funny how we mention this. Like, everyone's obsessed with the first one. That's shown on ITV/ITV2. For anyone in Britain, you'll know what we're talking about. Anyone outside, you'll have no idea what ITV is. It's a British TV station thing. But basically, the first one's shown so much. The third one is also shown in equal measure, but no one talks about the second one, like on terrestrial TV. I don't know why. Because I feel like it's the most family friendly one out of all of them. Like, you've got the potential like allusions. Maybe, I don't know.
I think it's one of the cooler ones. I actually in my ranking, I actually prefer the second one. So I don't know if I'm crazy or whatever, but I prefer the second one because there's a lot going on.
A little crazy.
But I do love the third one as well.
Yeah, the third one's great. I enjoy the fact that it goes back into the moments because I like seeing them interact with the moments from the first film. I think that's really cool. Like, not many films do that nowadays. Like, they kind of they did it in Endgame for Avengers. They did go back to things. But it wasn't as cool, in my opinion. I love Endgame, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't as cool.
No, it wasn't as cool. I think the main reason in Endgame is because, like, there are stakes, obviously, in Endgame, but there are real stakes. It's like, they can't be seen, otherwise it's the end of the fucking universe, and,
Yeah, literally. But no, the third one is so good. The third one is really good, and I just, like you say, Martin, it is shown so much, and for anyone growing up in Britain, like just anyone with terrestrial TV, you're gonna see it at some point because it's a necessity.
I think for me, this is my least favorite one out of the three. I would still say in the order they came out is my favorite. Like, the first one is still my favorite. This is actually my brother's favorite film of all time, so he'll be quite happy with it. We're talking about this. And then the second one, and then the third.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. I think it might be because I've seen it a gazillion times. But I enjoy it.
No, I genuinely love the film. I think it's great. I think basically, if you want to get the full Back to the Future thing, I think you need to watch all of them. Like, they go into each other.
Yeah.
And I think none of them are bad, and I really like them. And I think anybody can have a different opinion on what they think is the favorite one. And I don't think you would be like, whoa, you're crazy. You'd think, oh, okay, like, that makes sense or whatever.
I think they cater to different, like, audiences, I think, don't they?
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you really like the Western sort of genre and that, like, the third one is great. And, first one, if you like all the stuff in the 50s, and the second one, if you like more of the sort of mind-bending, this future past stuff. paradoxes, alternate 1980s. It gets pretty out there.
Trump references and all.
Yeah, Trump references and all, yeah. It's basically a heist movie, actually, the second one.
It really is, isn't it? Yeah.
So I do think it's like slightly different genres. It's like a high school 1950s thing in the first one, sort of like a heist movie in the second one, and a Western in the third one. Yeah, I do think the whole trilogy is great, and I think it's, you need to watch the whole thing if you're into it.
Hey, I'm James Lovino, and I'm here to tell you about Alternate Sides, a movie podcast with a twist. I've worked in the film business for 2 decades, but I haven't actually seen that many movies, and this has been driving my frequent collaborator, Sam, a self-confessed film snob, crazy. So every week, while he's stuck in his car trying to avoid getting a parking ticket, thanks to New York City's alternate side parking regulations, we discuss a classic film I've finally just gotten around to seeing. Alternate Sides, a new podcast about movies, parking, and a 25-year friendship, wherever you get your podcasts.
So, David, what happens in Back to the Future Part 3?
So, I'm glad you asked. So, for anyone who hasn't seen the film, how dare you? Secondly, no, not judging at all. No, but just to give you a quick, brief overview of what the film is all about. So, for anyone who doesn't already know, is that the film, it stars, as I already said, Michael J. Fox as the titular character, Marty McFly. Everyone knows him. Everyone's favorite life preserver wearing guy. If you get the joke, you get the joke, guys. And then Dr. Emmett Brown, played by Christopher Lloyd, who's our mad scientist in all of this, who actually comes up with the time machine, which is shaped like a DeLorean. And it's, we start off the story in the 1980s, present day for the films in the trilogy, and we go back in time. As we said, we go through 2 different genres of film in the first 2 films, interacting with the events of the first in the second one, mind-bending stuff. But the third one is basically the end of the second. It follows on from the second one. So spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't actually seen this, but the third one begins where the second one left off. So you've got Marty in the rain. He's just seen Doc disappear in the DeLorean, flying in the sky, and is struck by a bolt of lightning. And he's nowhere to be seen, and he thinks his friend is dead. And essentially he gets a bit of interaction from the past, or future, depending on which way you want to look at it. And it is a letter from Doc written back in the 1880s saying that he's alive and well and he's living a happy life in the Old West, which is, we discover at some point during a couple of the films that he'd always wanted to go back to the Old West. I think he mentions it at the end of the film, of the second one. And Marty doesn't want to see his friend go. So he goes back in time with the help of 1955 Doc, again, after that guy just got rid of Marty from the first film. It's very confusing, but if you watch it, you'll understand. And then basically he just continues, he gets back in time, ends up being chased by bears, wildebeest, people on horses, all in the Wild West.
Wildebeest?
Something close to it anyway.
I think the wildebeest is an embellishment.
It is an embellishment.
Did not see those.
But yeah, anyway, so he goes back in time to the Wild West, so 1885. So they're playing with this whole, 30 years or 100 odd years either side of the 1985 timescale. He goes back, he finds Doc. Doc is living a happy life, but he convinces him to go back to the future. And the film basically just follows them, the pair of them, Marty and Doc, trying to work out how to get back to the future, back to 1985. And we see several skits of them interacting with Western culture, so like the Wild West culture, I should say, and including various, I say rip-offs, homages, whichever way you want to look at it, to spaghetti westerns.
Riffs.
Dave, definitely. And seeing them basically reenact, it's funny actually, because in the second one, I think Biff, the character of Biff, the bully, in the future version of Biff, he's watching a Western film, which is then spoofed and recreated shot for shot in the climax towards the end of the third film.
I think that was a fistful of dollars.
Yes, it was. Yeah, I was just going to say, I've got my notes right here. Fistful of dollars, that is, specifically. Thank you. But yeah, basically, they do make it back to the future, but essentially there's loads of things going on. Gunfights, the DeLorean being pushed by a train, so many things, which we will go into properly in a minute. But essentially, you get
Doc in love.
Like literally, that's one of the many dalliances that happens during this film. You get like trying to get back to the future, which is the main point of this, which is the point of all of the films, really. And then you get obviously Doc falling in love, and I think that's the thing that really changes the third film up. And I think I'll conclude my summary with that. Yeah, Marty just wants to get Doc and his best friend back into his own time. And Doc's got to really think about where his heart lies. Does it lie in the Wild West, where he's always wanted to be, with now a woman that he has grown very fond of? Or does he want to continue traveling through time and space? Who knows?
So, directing then, I do love the gag when Marty drives the DeLorean into 1885 and Emmett Brown says the Indians in that picture won't be there. Why would they be there for starters? It's a picture.
It's 55, by the way. I hate to be an idiot, but...
Oh, yeah, 1885.
It's
the olden times.
Yeah, 18... no, I think... No, wait, hang on a minute. Maybe I'm wrong. Is it 1855 that they go...
No, it's 1885.
1885. Okay.
Yeah.
They're in 1955. Yeah. Sorry, I fucked up.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I love it when there is actually Native Americans riding towards them. But I didn't see why Marty drives away from them in the cave, into the cave. They were just riding past him. Then the cavalry is coming to prove that point.
Yeah.
So it felt like they were just kind of forcing a little action scene in there at the start.
Yeah, I think they just did it for a spectacle, really, didn't they? Because otherwise, if he just got there, because you think about it, it's the thing I said earlier, they're mirroring the story of each of them, really. And you think about the first one, he crashes into a barn. So, you need something of equal humor and hilarity to make up for it, but in a Western, like a Wild West setting then. So I suppose driving away from Native Americans and nearly crashing into the horses or thinking you're going to was the idea behind that, but maybe.
I think also as well, one of my main problems with this film is the fact that like the DeLorean is really lacking in this film. There's really not a lot of action with it. So I feel like Robert Zemeckis was like, we need to have Marty driving this thing for a bit, even though he doesn't really need to in that scene. So
do you know what I think that is actually? I feel like the reason for that as well is because if you think about, I did mention it briefly earlier, they shot Back to the Future Part 2 and Part 3 like simultaneously back to back, almost almost at the same time. I know they did them back to back shoots, but I'm pretty sure there were bits where they did simultaneous shooting. And literally, I think the reason why, if you think about it, the DeLorean's probably not in it because they're using it for half of the scenes, which it is in for the majority of the scenes of Back to the Future Part 2. So I just think that in the end, it's probably more of a production fault than it is a story fault. Because you think about it, we see it in the cave, we see it arriving, leaving 1955, and the concluding sequence,
then it just comes back on the train track. That's it.
yeah, literally, and you don't see anything else of it. But then again, I kind of don't mind that because why would you have a 1980s car in the middle of the Wild West other than for the obvious bits?
But also, what would they do with it? Like the fuel tank is fucked. So the whole point is to try and get it to 88 miles an hour. If it could work, he would just hop Doc in the back and then just go back.
It's a difficult one because when you think Back to the Future, you don't actually think of the characters. You think of the car.
Yeah, it's not a big character in this film.
You go to that amazing design of that DeLorean, and that is a bit disappointing for me.
Yeah, it's not a big point in this film. It's it's obviously a lot more important to the story in the first and second one. The whole plot is just to strap it to a train to get it to 88. It doesn't factor into the story that much.
No, it's a means to an end.
I kind of agree with what you're saying. Like, it's more of a character in the first and second one. In the third one, it is like the goal. The goal is to get it.
He is the train.
Is to strap it to a train and get it to 88. But yeah, I can kind of get that.
I really liked the introduction scene to Buford Tannen when Marty calls him Mad Dog, and Tom Wilson, who plays him, just stands up straighter, and the camera pulls out slightly, and everyone just runs away out of sight. I thought that was a really effective way to shoot that, to establish that Tannen is a big deal in this film, the Biff of this story.
Yeah.
Then the little scene where like Tannen drags Marty by a lasso through the street was really great in the editing, and the camera is nice and close to the horses, and the dust hits the light nicely. It looks great. And I feel like the production design was great to immerse yourself into this Western world. Like some modern Westerns just look too clean sometimes.
Yeah.
This definitely does not. I think the aesthetic in this film is really well done.
Absolutely, yeah. And I absolutely like the model, this town that they've got around, it's Hill Valley, but back in the day. And I mean, they must have obviously just built an entire fucking town, and it's...
They literally, I think they did actually.
Yeah, and it does look pretty brilliant. And I do like that even the clock tower, it's not even completely finished, but it's obviously the one from the first two movies. And and I agree, all the costumes, they're great. And so I find that it's very believable when he 1955 Doc dresses him like a cowboy, and you think, that's good enough. But when he goes there and you see, like, no, they're wearing dark colors, they're pretty, muddy and grubby, and they're like, what the fuck? Like, he looks like...
No. He looks like a twat before he goes back.
No, literally, it kind of, it's a real good comment, actually, on how, like, history and everyone's perception of history is different. Like, you think about it, it's quite a interesting perspective, really, that people in the 50s would probably think that, because it was, I mean, although to be fair, it's a bit distorted now, think about it, because if you watch A Fistful of Dollars, like, you think about it, actually, to be fair, in this, actually, Fistful of Dollars wouldn't have been out, actually, would it? It would have been, that's the 60s, so it wouldn't have even been out in this, like, time period for Doc and Marty, would it, in the 50s? So they wouldn't actually have clear, well, they might have had like a couple of like black and white movies, but that's the thing, actually. I think black and white movies would have made out like things to be a lot brighter and like, more vibrant.
Yeah, that's probably where Doc's coming from.
Yeah, he's just like, you wear the boots, you wear the bright colours, you'll be seen as a good guy in town, you'll be fine. And then he looks like an absolute tosser in the middle of it all.
Yeah, he's very much going from this, John Wayne white hat kind of aesthetic from the 50s.
Yeah.
But we've covered, like, what was it? The Harder They Fall, a Western on this podcast before. And there are moments, I love that film. I really adore that film. Yes, there's some story problems, but but there are times in that where it just feels too clean. I'm like, there's just something about it that doesn't feel right. But in this, like, I think the dirtier, the better with all the dust and stuff. I really like it in here.
Yeah, I feel like you're right there. And do you know what? I think you mentioned the sequence where Marty gets pulled he's strung up and gets pulled. Like, really, for a film that's primarily a time travel comedy, like, it's very, up until the moment that obviously Doc comes in, he's so badass, and he just goes like, just like, go away, Tannen, and gets him, and it's quite dark because Marty's being literally hung and he's choking, trying to breathe for every last breath that he's got, and you just don't imagine that to be in. And if you say time travel comedy, you don't expect to get your main hero to be strung up in a noose, to be, nearly killed off in the first 20 minutes. It's just that then Doc comes in and makes it cool again and makes, but I thought even though it was seriously nearly died, I actually thought it was quite funny. The fact that he sounds really hoarse and really like in pain. He's just like, Doc, you're alive, you're good. And I'm just like, like, it's serious. It's a nice Bondy moment because you think about what happened in the second film. They just got back together after what seems like ages, or he thought he died. But I just think it's a heartwarming scene, but then it's just so funny at the same time because it's just like, I can't talk, I can't breathe.
Yeah, talking about funny, I think one of the funniest bits is where Marty is doing a whole Taxi Driver in front of the mirror with his ass hanging out.
Oh, I hated that. I didn't like it.
What? I thought that was hilarious.
They're riffing a lot on westerns. Taxi Driver's not a western. What the hell is that about?
I liked it.
And plus, what makes that worse, just before that, you see his arse cheek. I'm like, I don't want to see his fucking arse cheek and then do a Taxi Driver impression. What's all that about?
All right, well, that's you, man.
That needed to be cut,
No,
for sure.
that's you,
I was
man.
just like, this is...
No,
what is going on?
I love, Fox's ass. He's got a nice foxy ass. Keep it in.
I mean, to be honest, it's funny. Like, that's one scene. I personally prefer the bit where Tannen's shooting at his feet and he does the moonwalk. That bit for me, I like that bit. That's great.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, that was... And they're all like, what the hell are you doing?
It's like, what kind of a move is that?
It's like he's walking on some surface that isn't Earth.
Oh, that's brilliant. No, there's some good gags in this film, honestly. But going back to what we were saying about the fact that, Doc's got a love interest in this, that's a big part of it, really. You take this comedy character who's just a mad genius, he's made a time machine out of a DeLorean, although if you go by the original idea, it could have been a fridge originally or whatever it was that Zemeckis and Gale were thinking up and cooking up in their heads. Yeah, I think I'm sure it was like a fridge or something really ridiculous. It wasn't going to be a car. It was originally going to be something else. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm sure it was a fridge.
Wow.
That sticks in my head. We'll look this up later. And anyone, please tell us. Please message us in the comments. If it was a fridge, give us the thumbs up. But yeah, literally, I just think that, it's such a lovely, lovely sort of change of tone and pace, really, to give him that love story arc, really. And it's not too corny that I want to switch off.
I think another aspect of these films that make it iconic and so rewatchable is Alan Silvestri and his music. I just love the music in this.
Praise that man. Such a good man.
He elevates every action scene to make them feel really epic, and it's no different here. But his work shines through in a small talking scene in this film where Emmett confesses to Clara that he loves her and tells her the truth that he has to go back to the future. For me, their chemistry and acting is strong enough for the emotional weight for that scene to work. But in a fast sci-fi action film, we can't wait for that emotion to really hit us properly. So Alan Silvestri's music gets us to that devastation a little quicker and even preempts it so we can kind of move on in the story and keep the pace up. I feel like, the music brings that epic feel, but it just also brings the pace in this film as well.
Yeah.
I think he does a tremendous job in that scene in particular. I always remember that moment for the music, especially.
Yeah. Definitely.
Do you guys find that? Or
no, absolutely. 100%. It's beautiful, beautiful piece. I mean, he just, his music elevates everything. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this that I'd recently, prior to recording this, seen the musical version. It's the fact that his music has not only lived on in the legacy of the film, but it's so good and so much so that it gets used and incorporated as a main big bulk and a big part of the stage adaptation of it. Anytime people think of Back to the Future, you think of three things, really. Firstly, you think of the DeLorean. Thirdly, you'll think of the characters, just as one thing. But then the second thing you think of immediately after the DeLorean is that iconic theme music of when he goes back in time, when he drives at 88 miles per hour, when he goes off into the sky and he says, "Rose, we don't need Rose," the end of every film. It's just so it's like it's as if John Williams had a baby, but like that sophisticated, almost, I don't know how to put it into words, but he's just so because everyone worships John Williams in the world of film music, but Alan Silvestri really, I mean, no, probably sounds really bad on my part for not really totally being invested in everything he's done, but for me, he will always be the Back to the Future guy. He'll always be the music of Back to the Future. Even so, actually, his music got used in Ready Player One as well. Actually, I think they used a little bit of the theme in that film, I think, if I remember rightly.
I think so. He does the Avengers theme as well.
Yeah, that's it. You see, I don't know what it is. When people mention things to me, Alan Silvestri, I'll always go, "Oh, that's Back to the Future guy. That's the music, the legacy," But when people say, "Oh, yeah, he did this," I'm just like, "Did he?" Like, I probably read about it. I probably was like, oh my God, that's so cool. Yeah, he did such a great job at the time. But like, as the days go on, the weeks and the months and the years, I'll be guilty of just typecasting them as one thing. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Because to me, I think the legacy of someone like that, it's really good that, you think of one thing, you think of that person. And if they can pop into most people's minds as something truly amazing as the score work in any of the Back to the Future films, I think that's an achievement in itself. So, praise you, Alan.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the most iconic pieces of score in film history for me, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Boaz, what's your favourite shot or scene, sir?
Probably my favourite scene is where he beats the shit out of Tannen at the end.
Oh, yeah, that's mine as well.
Very good scene.
That is just such a good scene. And I just love everything about it. Like, the fake out death. And even when you're talking about music, it's dead silent until it's, the sound of victory, the theme starts playing when he like kicks the gun away and you're like, oh my God. And then it goes silent again until he like punches him in the plate. And then, the music continues again. And and the way it stops and starts, actually, the music, I think just makes the scene even better. Because there's just such a good rhythm to it. It's like, the music is just basically coupling with what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, you think he's done. You think he's done kicking his ass. Oh, it stopped. Then he carries on. Sound of victory. And then he gets fucked up. I like also where they do that he smashes into the tombstone as well, to the headstone. That was great. The whole scene, the whole scene was great. And then obviously it's got to end with him going headfirst into a pile of shit,
Oh, yes, as it should be.
Back to the Future classic. And
yes.
It's just such a great scene, man. I fucking love that scene.
Yeah, that's my favourite scene as well. Yeah. But I feel like it's a little predictable as well with what happens, but that's not a massive problem. I still really enjoy it. But it's obviously, you said, David, already that it's riffing off A Fistful of Dollars. And if you've seen that, like in that film, the bad guy in that sees Clint Eastwood down the end of the street at the end of the film, and the whole thing is like, the bad guy's got a rifle. The rifle is better than the pistol, and there's a lot of like Catholicism in there. Whereas at that point in the film, Clint Eastwood is kind of effectively coming back from the dead, kind of. And he's walking down the street and he's got the chest thing on, and he keeps shooting him in the heart. And he keeps getting up again, but he gets into range of the bad guy. And then they kind of have a duel where they put their guns on the floor with one bullet left, and they quickly load it. And obviously Clint Eastwood loads it first and blows them away. Mm. Yeah, that's a great scene. So when you go into this one, knowing what happens in Fistful of Dollars, and Marty just takes his gun belt off, and you're like, oh, okay, what's happening here? I didn't expect this. So that was the moment where I thought, oh, this scene is getting really cool now. Yeah. But then when you do that, there's only one thing that can happen is Tannen, shooting him. So yeah, a minor gripe, but I still really like it.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
No, it is truly a good scene.
David, how about you? Favorite shot or scene, sir?
Well, to be honest, I'm going to switch up a bit, to be fair, because I do also like the end scene where it riffs off A Fistful of Dollars, and I just I love like Boaz says, I love the rhythm, the way the music plays in and out. I just love that, and even though like you say, Martin, it is predictable in a way because we know what to expect with this franchise as you get to the third movie out of after you've seen the previous ones. It is such a great scene of like a air punch moment. But for me personally, we mentioned it already. Like, there's several things that I do love. Like, I love little things like the revisiting and the riffing off of the original film where he wakes up and he's talking to his mother, where he thinks he's talking to his mum and he's had a dream, and he does it again in the second one, and he's like, Mom, like the first one is like, Mom, oh, he can't say it's his mum because he's like, you're hot. And then the second one, it's like, you're so, like, basically he wants to say that
big,
you're so ugly and you really lost it. And then but then the third one, it's that nice moment of, oh, we've come full circle, we're doing it again, but it's his like great aunt or whatever it is. I can't remember the actual relative.
Yeah, great grandmother or something.
But like really like distant relative, and I love the small little character moments like that. But truly overall, my favorite scene it sort of comes a close second with the moment where Marty gets dragged through town and Doc like appears like the guy to save the day, where he shoots him and he goes down and doesn't die. I do love the ending of the film where where they do, as we keep saying about this very famous train, where the train pushes the DeLorean. The train really ultimately, it's imbuing so much of that, Wild West culture of, like you've got trains, you've got this DeLorean time machine, and I just love how they make it work. Like it's so put together, and it's just such a interesting thing that you never thought you'd ever see, but then you do, and it's just so crazy at the same time. And also, it's just genuinely such a great tension builder, really, because you think about it, there's a ravine, they could fall off it, and obviously it does. But I just think that it's brilliantly paced. The use of the editing in that scene, I think personally for me is one of my favorite things out of the film, up with obviously the bits where Marty's getting dragged through the town square and stuff like that, and the homages to Western films. But I think ultimately, you're going back and forth between all these different views. You got the impending doom of going off the bridge, and eventually they do make 88 miles per hour. But I just love the fact that there's so many stakes at this.
Yeah, basically Clara hanging by her ankle and all that, and it getting faster and faster and faster, and like different coloured smoke going over. And
it's I think the different colour smoke. It literally, I'm thinking about it now, I'm getting actual chills on my arms, like goosebumps, really, because literally, I love the fact you get all the different colours, and it's just it feels really epic, and it's the moment, that jaw-dropping moment you mentioned, Boaz, Clara. Like literally hanging off of the edge. It's the bit where the music just drops, and she drops her foot, and you think, oh shit, she's going to fall off. And then I just think it delivers in so many ways. You've got the action, the tension, the romance, the whimsy, the fear, the anticipation, and it feels so satisfying by the end of it when you do get them where they should be. Although you got that thing of, oh my God, are they dead? But then obviously that's quickly rectified by the time we get to the actual concluding scene. But, the train scene will always be my number one favorite from a visual perspective, editing, just the whole shebang.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. There's so much going on in the train scene. And yeah, absolutely, you're right. There's so much suspense, and you're really at the edge of your seat, and it's a visual spectacle as well. And yeah, no, I do love it, definitely. I even like that, even when you think they've solved it, like they've got very little time, and he remembers he's got the hoverboard. So you're like, okay, hoverboard. And then he tries to give it to him, and then they're like, Marty, and he's about to get his head fucking taken off by like a sign. So he's got to and you're like, oh my God. And then now they don't have enough time. And so it is brilliant how they do that, and again, she's like slipping, and it's just so close.
I just love it.
I love it when films do that, like really cut it to the wire, where even though you've watched it 10 times, you're like, oh, thank God.
It still gets me every time. And I love the fact that they have Easter eggs. Like, you're going back to 1985, first film, the hoverboard, second film, and then you've got the train pushing the DeLorean, third film. Like, it's like, they obviously did it deliberately.
Yeah, it's like they've connected a lot of the plot points from the first three. Yeah.
The best bits from each film, and they've put them all together.
Directing score, Boaz? What should we go for Back to the Future Part 3? I'm thinking like a solid 8 or a 8.2 or something.
8.6.
8.6? 8.4?
I'd say 8.5 for me personally, just because, it's not my favorite, but, it's still a cool film. But for me, I'd say, if I was to rank the trilogy, Back to the Future, like thinking about it logically, I think 2 will definitely be closer to a 10 than anything.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite.
Number 1 is very close behind that on like a 9 point something or other scale. But this one, because it's its own thing, but it's still at the same time very, unique, but also it's not the other two. I think I'd easily give it an 8.5.
What should we go with, Boaz? 8.5 or 8.4?
I'm still adamant with an 8.6.
Really?
That's what I feel like, man. You know, I mean, you can
8.5 then.
All right, we can go 8.5.
What's your score then, David? What are you going for again?
I'll stick with a solid 8.5 because it's not saying it's bad, but it's not worthy of me personally saying it's up in the 9 or 10 at all because, like I say, it's not my favourite. Yeah. Number 2 would overtake this one purely because of my love of science fiction and I do enjoy and dystopia and stuff like that. I enjoy a Western, but Westerns aren't really my thing. But because it's Back to the Future as a Western, I'm enjoying it a bit more. But I'd say a solid 8.5, really, to be honest, from me.
So, screenplay then. So this film basically pretty much plays out much like in the same structure as the first film. You know, Marty goes back in time, knocks his head and wakes up in his family's house from his past. Emmett Brown works out a plan to send Marty back to his own time, but the love story element with his parents is integral that Marty exists in the future. But that's where this film differs. The love story is with Emmett Brown falling in love with Clara Clayton, but it's not integral for Marty and Emmett Brown to getting home. But in fact, it's getting in the way of their plan getting home this time. So the love story element becomes very unpredictable and keeps the film interesting. Yeah. Whereas in the first film, you kind of know at some point that George is going to, kiss his mum at the end. Yeah. So, I feel like that is what keeps it going, really. That keeps the intrigue in this film. Yeah. Is the love story.
Yeah, I also love it because it is an inversion of like Doc's character. It still feels true to his character, but in the first two, he's very much like the sage. He's like the angel on Marty's shoulder to try and like keep him on the straight and narrow. He's also always the logical and analytical one. Then I like in this one where even before he meets Clara, it's like the idea I can fall in love first sight. That's nonsense. I'll just not meet her. And he's still talking about, we got to get back to the future, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, and when he sees her, and they do have nice chemistry where it's like, suddenly now he's more the impulsive one, and he's the, puppy dog, and Marty's got to try and make him see sense that, no, you've got to think scientifically, Doc, like this might fuck up everything, who knows? And I kind of like that inversion. I think, and that's one way to do it because, you can't just have them the same. It does feel like they're sort of, do you know what I mean, growing in this film with this sort of added relationship and stuff.
I feel like it plays on the joke from the first film where Doc is like, the one mystery in the universe that I can't work out. Women.
Yeah, I think that's basically that.
That was so good.
And there's like, he's finally worked it out, guys. It's taken several hundred of years of like time travel. He's gone forwards, he's gone backwards, he's gone forwards, backwards, and everywhere in between. All to do with his little Padawan, and now he's finally understanding women.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant.
He's conquered everything now.
He knows everything. Now. He's unstoppable.
Especially with that train at the end.
Yeah. That thing is like it's like from
Colossal.
Transformers or something. Yeah, it's huge.
Literally Transformers. But yeah, no, I do
take over a fucking world.
What you said, Boaz, there with the whole like the love story, like because really, you had two obstacles in the first film where you'd like he's being able to have the means like the 1.21 gigawatts generated to get back to the future. That's obstacle one. Obviously, him interfering with his own parents' timeline, that's obstacle number 2, which means he won't exist at all, And then obviously the second film, there's multiple, it's just Biff. Biff is the obstacle. Biff is that. And Marty's like...
He's everywhere.
He's Biff everywhere. But then this one, it's nice to scale it back a little bit. And I do agree, the chemistry between the two of them is just so lovely. And I think it's the scene where they go to the dance, like the little town dance thing. I think that really, it's a nice moment where, and equally it's, I talk about how the train sequence is so well shot and like so well put together. This one is the opposite of like intense editing or anything like that. It's just really simple and really simplified for a romantic element. And I just think that you're able to take a step back and be like, you know what, this crazy guy, he's a little bit out there. He's made a time machine out of probably what was known as like not the best car in the 80s, but he's made a time machine. He's achieved a lot. I think he deserves he deserves a woman by the end of this, doesn't he? Surely.
He deserves some love, yeah.
I think like the goal of this film is laid out pretty early on, but then the subplot of this gunfight between Tannen and Marty starts developing, and there's a moment when Emmett questions why Marty is wearing the gun on his hip, and Marty's like, I need to be ready for Tannen. Remember when he called me yellow? And Emmett's like, you can't keep losing your judgment every time. That's what caused your accident in the future. And you're like, oh shit. Even if they get back to the future, Marty still has a big problem to deal with. Yeah. And it's just a big bombshell shaking up the predictability of this film right in the middle of the story. That's almost forgotten about until you get to the end with Needles. But in the first film, that's a key part of the story that Marty has to tell Emmett about his future, because he's going to get shot by the Libyans. But with this, you have the one scene that's between Marty and Emmett, but that emotional thing about taking on bullies or not because, they call Marty names comes more from Seamus in this film. But I wish it came from Emmett more, but I guess you can't keep repeating yourself in this film. So I feel like that is one of the strongest elements of the first film, is just that Marty needs to talk to Emmett about his future, that he's going to get shot. And it's one of the great feel-good moments when Doc pulls his suit open and he's got a bulletproof vest. And with this one, it just, they're doing the same thing, but it just feels very lacking in that sense. For me, I know that you don't want to repeat yourself, but it's just it just doesn't feel emotional.
Is it just that realization that changes his character doesn't come from Doc, and you're like, oh, it should have come from Doc?
Yeah, I would prefer it to come from Doc, not Seamus.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, Seamus is a bit of an annoying character anyway for me. I mean, the Tash is awful, but that is bad. I want it from Emmett, not Seamus.
The only reason they actually include because Seamus is only really there because they want to do the whole Marty meeting his relatives through time kind of thing, because we've met his his parents as they were younger, and people prior to his time being on this earth, and we've met people, his future versions of himself and people he knows, and people that are yet to be born yet in the second one. I get where they were coming from, because they want to take it the next step further, so they can go back even further to people that he doesn't even know, people that he didn't know existed until he traveled back to the Wild West. But I do agree with you in that respect, that it wasn't really, we got this core relationship between this young boy and this mad scientist, and you've got that strong bond throughout the first two, and then you kind of lose it by the third one, because basically he's got another father figure in the mix who isn't his dad.
Yeah, who's kind of underdeveloped.
It's an interesting way to go about it, but I don't think it ultimately worked the best. I'm not the most annoyed about it as other people might be, but I do think that the film, could have benefited from a more succinct conclusion by making it more about Doc than Seamus.
Yeah. I did like the thing that Seamus did say to him, though, although he said it so earlier on in the film that it's kind of like their second conversation, but where Seamus was saying he had a brother who was hot-headed and, would, basically, if he was challenged, he would answer the call, and he was he got stabbed. And so for me, I was that this is sort of in Marty's blood, he's got to sort of push against this sort of nature of his. He can't do that because he might die.
But I would have preferred that to come from Emmett, though.
Yeah, I kind of agree, yeah.
That, maybe he had something in his family or something, because that's the core relationship. I don't know who the fuck this Seamus guy is, apart from that he's related to him.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I kind of agree. Seamus is sort of underdeveloped, and it is a really cool message for Marty to learn. He should have probably learned it from Doc. Yeah, that said, it is still cool how it ties in everything together, and he still does build as a character, and it ties into the second film as well.
But also, they wanted to dress Michael J. Fox up in another ridiculous outfit. Like,
I think that's 100%.
That's 100%. They were like, oh my God.
And give him an Irish accent, you know?
Yeah, give him because his name's McFly, therefore he must have an Irish accent.
Can I please do this? I want to do the Irish accent.
I want to do the Irish accent. I mean, I feel like McFly, wouldn't that be more like I don't know, because muck, you don't just get mucks in like Ireland, you get that in like more Scotland, to be honest with you. So
I think it's more Mac. Is it Mac is more Irish or MAC is more Irish, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
I think maybe potentially.
Mac is Irish, Muck is Scottish, right?
That's it. But it's funny because you think about it, Muckfly, and it's just like, they just wanted to have a bit of an extra bit of a laugh in there, didn't they? Like, they've already dressed Michael J. Fox up as a woman.
I think he couldn't do Scottish. I think that's what it was. I think it was like, you're going to have to be your Scottish ancestor. Maybe. And he's like, who can I go cool? And he's like, what the fuck is that? You're Irish. You're Irish now.
What was that?
I'm trying to process what that accent was then.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not. We may be killing Boaz in the process in these comments.
I think we might be. I mean, I can believe that he might have gone, oh, yeah, do you want to be a Scottish ancestor? And he did a really terrible job. And he was like, oh, right, Michael, I'm really sorry.
No, let's make it Irish. You can do Irish, right?
You're going to have to make it Irish. Can you do Irish? And he's like, well, to be sure, I'm part of the McFloy clan. And then he's like, yep, that's better.
It's at least better than your Scottish one. You know, that'll have to do.
Better than the Scottish. And, you know, it's giving him, we'll give you a tash and everything, Michael. You know, like, we've already made you into a teenage girl and, and an old man. So we might as well go the whole hog and give you an Irish accent and a tash to go with it.
Yeah. I think the film does have a definitive end when they destroy the DeLorean.
Yeah.
The car is what makes these films, is what we've said, you know. That's the iconic image of the trilogy, which is what makes these films.
Yeah.
And what makes this film a little bit disappointing, as I've said, that you don't get much DeLorean. But when it gets destroyed, it is quite a bittersweet moment. You know, it's what Doc wanted, but you can see it on Michael J. Fox's face that he loved that car and the great adventures he had with it with Doc. And it kind of connected them in a way. So when you get that ugly fucking steampunk train time machine coming in, it goes completely against what like Doc Brown had been saying. Like, traveling through time has only caused trouble.
He frequently changes his mind.
But I get it when you want to finish the film on a high. But you could have had like a message or a photo from his family that Marty could find later on. So the end could still feel like an end. Yeah. Also, the franchise ends because no one wants to see that train again.
I don't mind the train, actually. Like,
really? It looks really bad.
The CGI isn't the best, let's be honest here. It's not the best.
I'm not criticizing the CGI. The design is just dreadful.
Yeah.
No, I think it's fine.
I mean, it looks like a cross between Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and the steampunk car from last week from Army of Darkness.
I thought it was kind of cool.
I didn't mind it.
Yeah, I didn't mind it. There's loads of bells and whistles on it.
See, the bit that gets it for me is, you know, we know that Doc...
It's no DeLorean, but, you know.
There's no DeLorean, no. But we know that Doc loves Jules Verne. That's the bit that gets me, though. The bit at the end where he goes, look, here are my children. Jules and Verne. I just want to point out, I'm not saying... the one thing I want to point out about this, and it's biting me for ages, is that how old is Doc meant to be and how old is Clara meant to be? Because I'm not judging, you know, they're both adults, they're both consenting, but, you know, I just think it's a bit weird that he looks like he's in his, like, 60s, maybe something like that, and she's probably in her 40s at the very most, and they've managed to have these two little children who look so perfect and very Edwardian, and you know, just happen to be named after his favorite author. But you know, like I think the naming of them is sweet and all. Yeah, I can see the method behind that. But like, how old are these two meant to be? Like, it's not something I want to think about, but I feel like because I brought it up now, people are going to think about like, damn, when did they get it on?
All night long, baby.
Because you were mentioning, Boaz, in a previous episode that, like, Christopher Lloyd is just an old-looking actor.
He's eternal. He's an eternal man. Like any point he looks old, and he still looks about the same age. He still looks old as he did.
He's just got less hair.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just got less hair.
I just think he's eternal. But I think he was born an old man.
And even when he's playing a Klingon in Star Trek 3, he still looks old.
Exactly. Yeah, so I mean, like, how old? He's always been old. Always.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit? He was still old in that. He didn't have any hair in that, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just an old man. I reckon he was born just like an old guy. He just looked exactly as he
Benjamin. He Benjamin buttered himself.
Yeah, I reckon this is true, yeah.
Oh, God. Right. Favorite lines, people. I would say mine is, how many did he have? Just the one? Just the one?
Actually, I was going to say, there's something I only realised during this rewatch that I never realised now. You know how the ravine, it has like some Native American name? Is it Clahoa Ravine or whatever? And it was going to be called Clara Ravine because Clara fell into it.
Clayton.
Mm-hmm.
Clayton Ravine.
Yeah, Clayton. Clara Clayton. That was it. Clara Clayton. So it was Clayton Ravine because Clara fell into it. Did you know, like, after the train goes over, and like in the past, everybody calls him Clint Eastwood? Yeah. When he comes back on the train track, it's Eastwood Ravine. Yeah. I never knew that. That blew my mind.
See, I actually noticed that quite early on because it's the thing when he comes back on and he's like the DeLorean makes it on into 1985. It's the first thing you see. Like, I don't know whether it's because I just obsessed too much over details, but like it's literally right there, and I'm just like, I didn't recognize the significance of the whole Eastwood thing, like the fact that he was Eastwood until I saw the name, but obviously I like you, I didn't get that. Obviously, he's known as Eastwood. That's why it's called.
Yeah. You didn't connect it to the movie. Like, oh yeah, he was Clint Eastwood. But so everybody must think that he committed suicide or something, like, and then he's gone.
Because they never saw him again after that.
Yeah.
Like, he bested Mad Dog Tannen, but then it was obviously too much for him, so he killed himself.
Success went to his head. Yeah.
Let's name this lovely bit of railroad, which was nearly completed after a random dude who just appeared out of nowhere, who no one knows where he came from, doesn't have a birth certificate or anything. He called himself Eastwood. Let's just call the ravine after him.
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood must be raking in the cash right now.
Absolutely, yeah.
In that universe.
He literally must be. I wonder whether they actually paid him to use his name or anything. I wonder whether they did that.
Yeah, that would be incredible.
Yeah. Favorite line, David? What are you going for?
Oh, favorite line. So many favorite lines. It's a simple one, but I like it. I like the scene attached to it as well because of how the comedy value of it. It's like it's the yella. The chicken, but the yellow scene, just because it's a little thing that it's more prevalent in the second film. The whole "What are you, McFly? You chicken?" And then literally, chicken, and then literally, I love the fact, it's one of those many repeated things that this franchise does. But I do like the way that it's done. Like, it's altered slightly for the Western syntax and way that they do it and everything. Just it's not the most inspiring line by any means, because there's many of those. For instance, the whole monologue and the whole scene between Marty and Doc when they're trying to work out, they've got the car parked up the night before the DeLorean hopefully goes back to the future, where they're sat around the campfire kind of thing. I love that scene. I can't really pick a single line of dialogue that I love, but I love the way he just talks about, and I think it's when he's with Clara, actually, now I think about it. So he's with Clara and he's talking about his love for Jules Verne, and I love that, lovely bonding moment between them. And it's just, I can't pick a single line to really say that's my favorite line. Comedy value though, the whole yella, that's just sticks in my head every single time. But then second place would go to the very sweet, very whimsical monologue and discussion between Clara and Doc Brown.
I do enjoy all of the Jules Verne references where you've got Journey to the Center of the Earth and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I do enjoy that.
I thought the bit that was funny is when they're discussing Jules Verne. He was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I used to read that as a boy, and she's like, what the hell are you talking about? That was only 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, that proves your theory, though, Boaz, that he was always old. He's always old. He was a boy, and he was old.
He was always old. Just old man, all the time, Yeah, I bet he was like, telling his mother quantum physics or whatever. But anyway, I think there's a bunch of things. I really do like Mad Dog Tannen. I think he's quite funny. I like how he's a mixture of threatening and evil, but he is still a Tannen, and he's a fucking moron. And I like how he gets corrected as well. So I like stuff like, I'll shoot you down like a duck. And it's like, it's dog. It's dog, Buford.
Buford is a dog. It's like, I know what a dog is, and I know what a duck is.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite bits is, where he throws the frisbee at Tannen at his hand, and and then his gun hits, the bullet hits Doc's hat, but then Marty comes in and he's like, "Lighten up, you jerk!" And I love how they just look at each other like. Like, what the hell does that mean? Yeah.
Sure, I'd actually forgotten about that bit, the bit with the hat, and I like, do you know what? Oh god, I think I might have to change my mind. Actually, yeah, I like that bit. I'll stick with what I said already. But no, that is truly, honestly, such a. Oh, it's so bloody good.
Is that your favourite line then, Boaz? Do you reckon?
That's probably my favourite line. I also like that line where they kind of switch expressions, him and Doc.
Oh yeah.
Like he's learned that he might die, and he's like, "Great Scott," and then Doc's like, "Yeah, I know this is heavy."
Yes.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great cool moment.
It truly shows that it's come full circle.
Exactly, yeah.
Screenplay score, Boaz?
Oh.
7.8 or an 8?
Jesus Christ, 7.8? What the fuck?
8.2?
8.2. Yeah, 8.2. Yeah.
David?
I mean, I'm going to say this, and it's not because I don't like the film. But I would say because it is very repetitive of the formula, it's very formulaic then. It is formulaic because of what's come before. I would say screenplay-wise, I'd say a solid, I'd say maybe 6.8 because...
6.8? Christ, okay, fair enough.
Maybe 6.9 because, I don't know, like closer to 7, but like 6.9, mainly because like it's nothing like too exciting. Like, I don't know, I feel like it'd be higher if it was switched up a little bit more, because don't get me wrong, I love the moments, like I love the train, I love the gags, I love it all, but I just think because it's the third one, like we've seen some of these gags for the third time, and it's just like, oh, we could have done something different. But I'm being pessimistic on one hand because I do love it really.
Do you think they could have gone bigger? Or
I think some aspects they could have gone bigger, and others they could have brought it down a little bit, just a little bit. I mean, mostly bigger. I think I would say the bits that I'd want them to change up, I'd say make it bigger. Make the maybe not the opening where he wakes up with his great grandmother or whatever it is. Maybe change that to maybe waking up in the clutches of Mad Dog Tannen or something really unexpected, something that'd be really, just put him in the in the line of danger from the get-go. Sure. He's already tried to be chased away by, he's nearly crashed into a load of Native Americans. He's nearly got attacked by a bear. That was good. So I feel like it should have come in threes rather than, this, that, and the other. And then he just whacks his face into a fence, that was funny, but also I feel like it would have been better if he whacked his head into, I don't know, like he just tripped over, looks up, and I can imagine he goes, "Oh my god, it's Biff!" It's like, who are you talking? And just it could have been much, and then we could have accelerated the plot and maybe had a bit more space for like you say, some of like the Emmett Brown stuff. Like we would have had a bit more space for him and Emmett Brown to converse a bit more, because a lot of it is down to
with Marty,
the love story and the repetitive gags. So it seems harsh, but I'd give it okay, I'll review 6.9. I'll stick with 6.9.
Okay, yeah. Still happy with 8.2? I'm happy with that, to be fair.
Yeah, no, I'm going to stick with that. Yeah, no, but I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I think the characters are still really strong.
You know, I do think, they could have done less of the formula and, maybe gone a little bigger.
Yeah. Acting then, I love the freak out scene when Christopher Lloyd sees Marty for the first time in his house right at the beginning. He acts like he's seen the devil himself. And I love the added touch of Lloyd touching the piano keys, making it super melodramatic, creating some great comedy there. But
yeah, that was funny.
My favorite part is when he storms into the bathroom, shaking with disgust like a rag doll. And what makes it so funny and great is the fact that I have no idea what he just said because he's freaking out so much.
Yeah.
I love that moment so much.
I did like that, but I think the one thing I don't like about the freak out bit, it was funny, but it feels like it could have been in the first movie.
Oh, right.
Do you know what I mean? It seems like they're trying to redo it. Because I'm like, why does he find it so unbelievable that Marty has come back in time? I mean, he's got a fucking time machine. Of course he can come back in time.
Yeah.
But he doesn't believe him. And to me, that doesn't fit. Like, in the first film, he doesn't believe him because, he doesn't accept time travel.
Which is fine, because it's the first experience, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
But I'm like, he's just done it, though. He's just...
Yeah, but, that's how time works.
Yeah, he's just brought him back to the future. It's like, he's here again. What the hell?
Yeah, because I did find that funny, but I was like... I think that's just them trying to reattempt the gag at the first one, and they got a better gag. But it's a case of like, where you could tell a better joke, but it's like it's the wrong time. It doesn't really make much sense. So that was my feeling of that scene.
Christopher Lloyd is still awesome in that. I thought he was great.
Yeah, no, there's a really sweet moment in the first one where 1955 Doc goes, "I'm really going to miss you," like. But then in the third one, it's just like, "Get out my house. Get out now. You can't be here." And I'm just like, you just less than 10, 15 minutes ago, you were going to miss this boy. And now you're like, get the fuck out of my house. Like, what is going on?
You would, though. You've just sent him back.
Yeah.
Can he immediately right in your house again? It's just like...
I get what you're meaning, but I'm just saying, like, Doc is a smart man. He understands time travel, right? It's like, it could be a couple of years.
Well, he should do at this rate.
Yeah. It's not like, Marty is a fucking alien or something.
Well, to be fair, though, he figured out the flux capacitor by knocking his head on the toilet,
Yeah, this is true as well.
Yeah, maybe he's pretty thick, actually. Who knows?
We all know on this podcast, and listeners will know, I have a problem with child acting. But this film at the end, the child acting is outrageous. Like,
oh wait, I was trying to think, what children are you fucking talking about?
I was actually also confused.
I was so
even
confused.
Though I'm the one who brought up the children earlier.
I forget they existed.
I mean, they don't actually say anything though.
They could have been replaced by cardboard cutouts. They're just there to stand.
That's not what I'm getting at. I don't know how they missed this in the editing, but when Doc Brown brings out his kids, Jules and Vern, and at some point, like, Vern is doing this "come to me" gesture, and he points to his dick. I'm like, I've watched this so many times, and I was told about it later, and I was like, that is such a bizarre and weird moment. What the hell was going on in that guy's head?
Yeah, did you know that, David?
You must know.
Yeah.
Yes and no. So, like, I've seen it because I've rewatched it recently for this, and I'm just like, yeah, that's fine. That's innocent. It's cool. It's normal. But now you're saying that, I'm not going to be able to unsee that now. I can't unsee that.
No, I know. It's like, it's one of the funny things that I'd never noticed it. I watched the whole trilogy many times. And I think I was watching it online, and somebody had the scene, and they were like, if you'd zoom in, and I can't unsee it. It's like every time he's saying, "These are my kids," I'm like, the kid is basically like that. He's like,
"Come to my dick."
I'm like, what the fuck? It's so surreal.
Yeah, safe to say, I've never noticed that ever until this very moment.
Really?
You got to rewatch that scene.
Ruining the film.
Yeah. I'm not going to say ruining it, because it's sweet and all, but like, they're very wooden, aren't they? They're just like, they didn't need to be people. They could have just, "Oh, my kids are in here," and you could have just put like ADR in there being like, "Oh, hi Dad, hi Mom, yeah, we're playing with a dog in the back." He didn't actually show them because they just look so awkward, don't they? You could just tell that they were like picked up. I don't actually know what the names of the child actors are, but I bet they were like either kids of production team members or just random last minute casting where they've literally just gone, "Oh, you'd look funny in Edwardian clothes."
They're just driving, boy. You look sort of like you would be Christopher Lloyd's kids, Dress them up. There you go.
But the thing is, they truly can't be Christopher Lloyd's kids because they don't look old at a young age.
Exactly. You're 100% right. I think. Do you know how hilarious it would be if they shot like two really short 60-year-old men? That would have been great. These are my kids. They're like huffing cigars,
Come to my dick.
Hello, mother. Hello, father. That would have been brilliant. I should have done that.
Oh God, you're killing me. Oh, you're killing me.
Oh man, that would have been great.
Boaz, favorite performance for you?
Definitely the penis kid. Hands down. Favorite performance. I might say. Oh man, that's difficult. I might say Christopher Lloyd. Actually, yeah, I think that's where I'm going.
It's Christopher Lloyd for me. Are you going to make it a full house, David?
It is Christopher Lloyd for me as well. Absolutely, make it a full house. It's not the penis kid.
He brings a lot. Yeah, it's not the penis kid. He's a close second. I think he just brings a lot of heart to the film.
No, he does. I think and the fact. It's all about him, really, isn't it? Because you end the second film with, I always wanted to go to the Wild West, but now I've got to destroy the time machine. But then he actually gets to go. Yeah. And it kind of feels very melancholic in a way, even though you're not looking back on it. Like, it's just such a lovely... I think Christopher Lloyd as an actor, overall, props to him for everything he's ever done, even if he's never aged a day, apart from maybe cutting his hair. He's truly... an amazing actor, he's iconic. He's a man of his own generation, his own world, really. Yeah, with all these treasure. Minions, it's a bit like Minions. He's like Gru, except the only difference is they all look like him.
Absolutely, man.
Acting score, Baz, what should we go for? 7.8? 7.9?
Yeah, 7.9, I suppose.
David, acting score?
I'd say they do pretty well with the material. Minus the penis kid, obviously. I would say, I'd give it a solid 8.
Right, let's add up the scores then for Back to the Future Part 3.
You're just boogieing down there.
Yeah.
Nice.
Just need a countdown clock going on now. Boom.
No, you need like a couple of minutes for Martin. Maths is not his strong suit.
Oh, don't worry. It was never mine either.
I'm just double checking. Back to the Future Part 3 gets exactly 48 points.
Oh, it's just 40 away from 88 miles an hour.
One of the very vast Boaz connections there.
Everything's connected, man. I've got a whiteboard... lines.
You didn't get 42.
That's true. It's only 4 away from the, or is it 6? 6 away from the meaning of the universe.
6. There we go.
Fuck you.
And I'm bad at maths. Jesus Christ.
I'm worse. That's why you add. I criticize your addition. That's what I do. That's my job.
Oh, brilliant.
That's it for part 1. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 2 to see who wins. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell us what your favourite films are relating to the episodes. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for Twitter at FVF_podcast. If you do, we'll give you a shout out on the next episode. If you're feeling really generous, you can buy us a one-off coffee at our Buy Me a Coffee account. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.